Breaking news: trade war erupts. The year is 2025. The world is more interconnected than ever, with technology and trade weaving a complex web of relationships between nations. Headlines scream across TVs and phones. Trade war, they blare. Mexico strikes back. The images are stark. Factories stand idle, their once bustling floors now eerily silent. Workers who once relied on these jobs to support their families are left in limbo, uncertain of what the future holds. Angry protesters fill the streets, their voices echo through the city, demanding answers and action. They carry signs that read, "Save our jobs and end the trade war." The tension is palpable as citizens from all walks of life come together to express their frustration and fear. The financial markets are in freefall. Stock prices plummet, wiping out billions of dollars in value. Traders, who once thrived on the predictability of the market, now face unprecedented volatility. The uncertainty sends shockwaves through the global economy, affecting everything from retirement savings to corporate investments. The US and Mexico, once close trading partners, are now locked in a bitter economic battle. The reason? Electric vehicles. More specifically, tariffs. These tariffs, intended to protect domestic industries, have instead ignited a fierce conflict that threatens to unravel years of economic cooperation. The US, under the leadership of a newly returned President Trump, has slapped heavy tariffs on Mexican-made EVs. In his speeches, he argues that these measures are necessary to bring jobs back to American soil. However, the reality is far more complex, as the interconnected nature of modern supply chains means that such actions have far-reaching consequences. This protectionist move, designed to shield American automakers, has backfired spectacularly. Instead of revitalizing the industry, it has led to factory closures and layoffs. The ripple effects are felt across the nation as communities that depend on these jobs face economic hardship. Mexico, under the leadership of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has responded with retaliatory tariffs of its own. These measures target key American exports, further escalating the conflict. The Mexican government stands firm, vowing to protect its own industries and workers from the fallout. The situation is escalating rapidly. Protests grow larger and more frequent as people on both sides of the border demand resolution. Diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the conflict are met with limited success, as both nations dig in their heels. What began as a dispute over electric vehicles now threatens to engulf the entire North American economy. Trade routes that once facilitated the smooth flow of goods are now fraught with delays and uncertainty. Businesses scramble to adapt, seeking alternative suppliers and markets. The stakes are incredibly high. Negotiations take on a sense of urgency as leaders from both nations seek to find a way out of the impasse. The future of countless industries hangs in the balance, with the potential for long-term economic damage growing by the day. Millions of jobs are on the line. From factory workers to truck drivers, the impact of the trade war is felt across a wide range of sectors. Job fairs see record attendance as displaced workers search for new opportunities. The human cost of the conflict becomes increasingly apparent. The global economy is teetering on the brink. The interconnected nature of modern trade means that the effects of the US-Mexico trade war are felt far beyond North America. Markets around the world react with volatility as investors grapple with the uncertainty. This is a story of how a trade war sparked by a single policy decision can spiral out of control with devastating consequences. The initial intent to protect domestic industries has instead led to widespread economic disruption, highlighting the delicate balance of global trade. As the world watches, the hope for a resolution remains, but the path forward is fraught with challenges. The 2024 US presidential election shocked the world. The results were unexpected, and the atmosphere was charged with a mix of excitement and apprehension. People from all walks of life gathered around their televisions, smartphones, and radios, eager to hear the final outcome. The tension was palpable as the votes were counted, and the nation held its breath. Donald Trump, defying all expectations, returned to the White House after 4 years out of office. His comeback was nothing short of dramatic, as he managed to rally his base and convince a significant portion of the electorate that he was the right choice for America. The celebrations among his supporters were jubilant, with many seeing his return as a vindication of their beliefs and values. His message was familiar: America first. This slogan, which had become synonymous with his political identity, resonated deeply with his followers. It was a call to prioritize American interests above all else, a promise to protect American jobs, and a commitment to restore the nation's economic strength. His policies, he promised, would be even bolder this time around. Trump vowed to take decisive action to address the issues he believed were undermining America's prosperity. He spoke with conviction about the need to renegotiate trade deals, reduce dependence on foreign goods, and strengthen the country's industrial base. Trump wasted no time in fulfilling his campaign promises. Within days of taking office, he signed a series of executive orders aimed at reshaping the nation's trade policies. These actions were designed to send a clear message to both domestic and international audiences. The United States was taking a new direction. He withdrew the U.S. from the World Trade Organization, branding it a disaster for American workers. Trump argued that the WTO had failed to protect American interests and that its rules were biased against the United States. His decision to withdraw was met with both praise and criticism, reflecting the deep divisions within the country. He imposed tariffs on goods from China, Europe, and even long-standing allies like Canada. These tariffs were part of his broader strategy to reduce the trade deficit and encourage domestic production. Trump believed that by making foreign goods more expensive, he could incentivize American companies to bring their manufacturing operations back home. His goal was clear: to bring back manufacturing jobs to the U.S., no matter the cost. Trump was determined to revive the American manufacturing sector, which he saw as the backbone of the nation's economy. He envisioned a future where American factories were bustling with activity, producing high-quality goods for both domestic and international markets. Trump's protectionist policies were met with alarm by many economists and business leaders. They warned that such measures could lead to trade wars, disrupt global supply chains, and ultimately harm the very workers they were intended to help. Critics argued that protectionism could isolate the U.S. from the global economy and reduce its competitiveness. They warned of retaliation, higher prices for consumers, and damage to the global trading system. The potential for retaliatory tariffs from other countries loomed large, threatening to escalate into a full-blown trade war. Consumers were also concerned about the impact on prices, as tariffs on imported goods could lead to higher costs for everyday items. But Trump, emboldened by his base of support, dismissed these warnings as fake news and doubled down on his agenda. He remained steadfast in his belief that his policies were the right course of action for the country. His supporters, who had long distrusted the mainstream media, rallied behind him, convinced that he was fighting for their interests. The stage was set for a showdown. The coming months would see intense debates and negotiations both within the U.S. and on the international stage. The stakes were high, and the outcome would have significant implications for the future of global trade and economic relations, a showdown that would have far-reaching consequences. The decisions made during this period would shape the economic landscape for years to come, affecting not only the United States but also its trading partners around the world. The world watched closely, aware that the ripple effects of these policies would be felt far and wide. The flashpoint came in the spring of 2025. It was a season marked by blooming flowers and rising tensions. The U.S. auto industry, despite Trump's promises of revitalization, was struggling to compete with the influx of affordable electric vehicles from Mexico. These vehicles, known for their efficiency and lower price points, were rapidly gaining popularity among American consumers. American automakers, facing mounting losses and plant closures, appealed to the White House for help. Factories that once buzzed with activity were now eerily silent, and workers who had spent decades in the industry found themselves jobless and uncertain about their future. Trump, eager to please his base in the industrial heartland, saw an opportunity to bolster his support. He had always positioned himself as a champion of American industry, and this was his chance to prove it. He announced a 25% tariff on all electric vehicles imported from Mexico, calling it essential to protect American jobs and our national security. The announcement was met with mixed reactions. Some hailed it as a necessary step, while others feared the economic repercussions. The impact was immediate. The price of Mexican-made EVs in the U.S. soared, making them less attractive to cost-conscious consumers. Dealerships that had once thrived on selling these affordable vehicles now faced dwindling sales and frustrated customers. American automakers celebrated, believing that the tariffs would give them a competitive edge. Executives clapped and smiled at meetings, and auto workers cheered, hopeful that their jobs were now secure. However, their cheers were short-lived. Mexico, outraged by what it saw as an unfair attack on its economy, vowed to retaliate. The Mexican president made a public announcement condemning the tariffs, and protests erupted across the country. The Mexican government began to explore countermeasures to protect its own interests. The world watched with bated breath. News anchors around the globe reported on the escalating tensions, and headlines warned of a looming trade war. People everywhere tuned in, anxious about the potential global economic fallout. The US-Mexico relationship, already strained by Trump's previous policies, was now at a breaking point. Diplomatic meetings between the two nations grew increasingly tense, and the border, once a symbol of cooperation, now represented a growing divide. The trade war, long predicted and feared, had begun. Cargo ships at ports were delayed, containers labeled "trade war" piled up, and economic graphs began to show a downturn. The ripple effects of the tariffs were felt far and wide, marking the beginning of a new and uncertain chapter in global trade relations. Mexico strikes back, retaliation rocks the markets. Mexico's response was swift and decisive. President López Obrador, known for his fiery rhetoric and nationalist stance, accused the United States of economic bullying and vowed to defend Mexican workers. He announced retaliatory tariffs on a range of American goods, from agricultural products like corn and pork to manufactured goods like steel and machinery. The impact on the U.S. economy was immediate and severe. Mexico is America's second-largest trading partner. The tariffs disrupted supply chains, increased costs for businesses, and led to price hikes for consumers. American farmers, already struggling with low commodity prices, were hit particularly hard. The stock market, reflecting the growing uncertainty and fear, went into a tailspin. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged over 1,000 points in a single day. The trade war, once a distant threat, was now a harsh reality. Economic fallout, the high cost of tariffs. As the trade war escalated, the economic fallout spread like wildfire. In the United States, businesses dependent on Mexican imports faced soaring costs and dwindling supplies. Factories were forced to cut production or shut down altogether. Unemployment rose, particularly in manufacturing states that had been key to Trump's electoral victories. In Mexico, the picture was equally bleak. The United States is Mexico's largest trading partner. Mexican businesses reliant on American consumers saw their exports plummet. The Mexican peso, battered by the uncertainty, fell sharply against the US dollar. Inflation surged, eroding the purchasing power of ordinary Mexicans. The trade war, intended to protect domestic industries, was hurting both economies. It was a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of the global economy and the high cost of protectionism. Economic fallout, pause 3S. The high cost of tariffs reverberated far beyond the borders of the United States and Mexico. Pause 2S. Across the globe, countries found themselves entangled in the economic consequences of this trade war. Pause 2S. In Europe, industries that relied on both American and Mexican goods faced similar challenges, with supply chains disrupted and costs escalating. Pause 2S. Asian markets, heavily dependent on exports, saw a significant decline in demand, leading to factory closures and mass layoffs. Developing nations, often dependent on exports to more developed economies, bore the brunt of the economic downturn. With reduced trade volumes, many of these countries experienced severe economic contractions, pushing millions into poverty. The ripple effects of the trade war highlighted the vulnerabilities of a globally interconnected economy. International financial markets also took a hit. Stock markets around the world experienced heightened volatility, with investors reacting to every new development in the trade conflict. Currencies fluctuated wildly, and central banks were forced to intervene to stabilize their economies. The trade war also strained diplomatic relations. Allies found themselves at odds, and long-standing trade agreements were called into question. The global economic order, built on principles of free trade and cooperation, was under threat. In the end, the economic fallout of the trade war served as a stark reminder of the costs of protectionism and the importance of global collaboration. As nations grappled with the consequences, the question remained: would the world learn from this episode and move towards a more cooperative future? Pause 3S. Future prospects. Pause 3S. In the aftermath of the trade war, nations around the globe began to reassess their economic strategies. Pause 2S. Governments and businesses alike recognized the need for greater resilience in their supply chains. Pause 2S. Efforts to diversify trade partnerships gained momentum, with an emphasis on reducing dependency on any single country. Pause 2S. Innovations in technology and logistics promise to make global trade more efficient and less susceptible to disruptions. Pause 2S. Countries invested in digital infrastructure, enabling businesses to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. Pause 2S. Meanwhile, international organizations played a crucial role in fostering dialogue and cooperation. Pause 2S. New trade agreements were forged, emphasizing mutual benefit and sustainable development. Pause 2S. The lessons learned from the trade war also spurred a renewed commitment to multilateralism. Pause 2S. Nations worked together to address global challenges, from climate change to public health. Pause 2S. The spirit of collaboration extended to the private sector as well. Companies across industries sought to build more inclusive and equitable supply chains. Pause 2S. Corporate social responsibility took on new significance, with businesses recognizing their role in promoting global stability. As the world moved forward, there was a sense of cautious optimism. The trade war had been a wake-up call, but it also opened the door to new possibilities. With a shared commitment to cooperation and innovation, the future held the promise of a more resilient and interconnected global economy.